Thank you so much. And to brief it up in just one sentence, as my own understanding, is that we need to provide data that is suitable for our customers and consumers' consumption. As for our upcoming panel discussion, we'll be having several experts in the same panel. We'll be introducing the topic, Discovering Data as a Strategic Asset and Valuable Resource. Who will be speaking? Our moderator, HAZEM ELZAYAT, the Chief Experience Officer from Memac Ogilvy. Let's welcome him on stage. Joining him, DION THORPE, the Vice President, Data from Bahri. ADEEM ALMURAYI, the Analytics Innovation Director from STC. And last but not least, our very own host, we were just introduced also, ALEXEY SIDOROV, the Data Management Director, Chief Evangelist from Denodo. Let's welcome him on stage.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this panel. So this is an exciting panel, I'm sure just as many others are, of course. The topics at discussion here are quite interesting, obviously. Data has been a keyword for the day, is a keyword for the next few years, probably, and the whole debate around data being a super valuable asset. Is it more valuable than oil is a regular question we hear these days. There's a number of things to discuss in that context. So before we start, just a quick introduction to the panelists. So I'll pass on to each one to introduce themselves briefly and just be conscious of time. So over to DION.
Thank you. Salam alaikum.
I think your mic is not switched on. Yeah.
Hello. That's got it. Salam alaikum. My name's DION. I've been at Bahri, which is a national shipping company of Saudi Arabia, now for 2 years. I have about 16 years experience over Australia, Singapore, and here now in Saudi Arabia, setting up data center of excellences and the like, and taking that all the way through from, I guess, sort of your data management, your data quality issues, all the way through into the AI side of things. So that's my background.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, pleasure to be here. ADEEM ALMURAYI, Analytics Innovation Director in STC. Basically, I handle the brilliant team of data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers who develop AI and machine learning as well as basic advanced analytics and BI reporting in STC. Thank you.
Hello, hello. My name is ALEXEY SIDOROV. I have almost 30 years of experience in data management. I did my PhD in the related area a couple of lives back. Then I worked in Finland for Nokia Corporation as a manager for global data integration platform there. Worked for the Deutsche Bank in the same role for some time. Then I switched to the consultancy part of data science. I worked for pure data companies like Teradata and Informatica, you've probably heard about. And for the last 3 years, I'm with Denodo in the role of a chief evangelist and data management director based out in Dubai, and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So considering the number of panelists we've got today, what we'll try to do is make sure questions are give everybody the opportunity to answer all the questions and keep it further quite fluid as much as we can. With the panelists' permission, if you would like to stop us for questions specifically on any of the questions being asked, please feel free to do so or hold the questions to the end as much as you'd like to. I think everybody would be perfectly flexible around that. So let's start with taking some keywords out of the topic of the panel. So we talk about data being a strategic asset and organization sort of readiness or organization maturity in terms of being able to live up to that statement. So we want to understand from our experts here at the table today, what do we really mean by the words data as a strategic asset? And if an organization is, well, I'd like to think brave enough to admit that they don't have the right maturity level to sort of use that statement, what are the recommendations? Where do we start planning for data as a strategic asset to help us reach that level of maturity? So over to the panelists, and whoever wants to go first, please feel free.
So thank you. Great question. I think data as a strategic asset is basically the recognition of data as a key component for companies that when it's leveraged, it can help in achieving the organizational goals as well as gaining competitive advantage. What you mentioned about companies not having that concept of data as a strategic asset or how to build up their data strategy, I would believe first they need to assess their current data, the current data as assets as well as capabilities, as infrastructure, tools, and as well as the quality of their data. And then they should define their data goals. What are they trying to achieve with this data? After that, building a whole roadmap of how to achieve the data objectives they have defined, as well as investing in the right tools and capabilities. Lots of tools in the market. However, companies have to choose wisely where to invest and who to commit with when it comes to their data investments and analytics. Last but not least, just monitoring the whole exercise, as well as continuously improve and make sure to spread a culture of data-oriented or data-driven decision-making in the organization. Maybe I'll give an example. In STC, our strategy is there, which is digitize STC, accelerate performance, reinvent customer experience, as well as expand and scale scope. Data and analytics is across all these 4 pillars, more or less. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd second what was said there, but I think as well, like the one thing for me that I notice just in my experience is it's becoming faster and faster. Like we said today, you know, we need to understand whether it be customers or our internal departments a lot faster. We're all here for a reason. It's all here around data and AI because it's something that the kingdom is really strong about. And I think, like for me, even if organisations aren't at the level of some organisations, there are quick wins that they can have within the organisation, and that can be around focusing on purely on departments, or it can be, you know, showcasing sort of those quick wins that you do get from those departments, and then from there, you know, build out that use case for whether it's the CFO, the CEO, to map that into the strategy for the year ahead, and then align your business cases or the project spend to what the strategy is for the organisation. So I think sort of speed and the people and the process and the technology is really sort of where we can see data as an asset, that's for sure.
I would like to take a kind of maybe academical look on that, leveraging the top-down approach, right? Nobody argues nowadays that the company that does not leverage the predictive analytics, advanced analytics, and artificial intelligence, machine learning, that kind of companies, they are not going to compete in the modern world or not gonna even survive. That's the reality, that's where we go into, and we cannot, it's kind of inevitably artificial intelligence is becoming kind of a top priority when you're doing the business. And let's look a little bit down what is needed to train your AI ML model. As one of the famous professor from Stanford University once said, Andrew Nag, right, he said that the AI and the data is like a spaceship and the engine. The engine is the algorithm, but the fuel that needs to be fed into that engine is the data. So without the fuel, your rocket will never fly into the space. So data is an essential part of your AI, ML, and advanced analytics strategy. And even if we go one level below again, then we need to build the requirements for the data. The data, if you want to use them properly, use them efficiently for the AI, ML, and predictive analytics, your data have to be clean, they have to be timely, they have to be very well managed, very well governed, described, and secured. Those are the requirements to the modern data that you can utilize later on. And from that comes all the rest, people, processes, technologies, in your company, but the data is really becoming a cornerstone of your future.
Wonderful. So now we know where to go to get some tips on sort of the quick wins and the low-hanging fruit and so on to move on to a data strategy, accelerate in some capacity, but also build up over a roadmap, as the experts at the table said. So the words department, the words people, the words structure, all of these have been mentioned in those answers. So it's going to be a good opportunity to also sort of start asking the question around roles and responsibilities. And we're hearing more and more about, roles such as, a data analyst or a data scientist or a VP of data or a chief data officer, different formats depending on industry, depending on company structure, et cetera, et cetera. But what are these roles really about? What do you really get out of these roles? What is their emphasis on a day-to-day basis? We'd really like to understand that. And that, I believe would couple well with our first point around strategy. You need the people to help deliver that strategy. So we'd like to get some insight from the panelists on what those roles mean and what do they do on a day-to-day basis, basically.
Okay, so I'll go first with this one. I think, like for me, I cover all bases. As a leader within the data team and within the IT team, I cover all bases. So that can go from data governance, data management, it can go into the BI, and it can also go out to the AI, but then it's as well, initially setting it up when the strategy and that side of things as well. So as a leader, you've got to wear the hat, and that comes from experience of many, many years. But then as well, I think, it evolves over time, right? So normally what you would do is you would get your approval for your project, you get the budget, you find your vendors that can assist you, or you hire internally if we do have those talents locally. And then what you would do is then start to actually implement the strategy that's been approved by the board, by the CEO, the CFO, that kind of thing. And that evolves over time, because I think initially, like for me, we all know we've got data. We know that we've got data in silos. Do we know the quality of it? Can it be trusted? And if you're building that up into an enterprise platform like we've heard about today, where you want to have those analytical platforms in the cloud so that they're accessible and easily sort of governed in one central location, it's just a matter of sort of working with all the different business units and getting the data in the right shape to be able to do the analytics, and then having that platform so that it can all be automated, like we heard earlier, so that it's an easy development process that it can be automated and industrialised and productionised in the future. So I think over time everything changes, and to a degree you might need sort of data management, data governance or data quality management to start with, to get your data really good and of high quality and trusted, and then work through into your sort of your dashboarding, your advanced analytics or your AI as well. And so at that point you may not necessarily need sort of your data quality management or your data governance as strongly as before, but you'll want to push more towards the AI side of things because you've matured to such a level. So the teams change over time. I'm not sure about STC. How does it work there?
Well, definitely the different roles are diverse in STC. We have the data governance, obviously, quality, stewardship, that are building procedures and processes around the data across the whole organization, and for us as well. For us, technically, we have various types of roles that handles the different stages of developing an AI product or even an advanced analytics solution that would start with data engineering, and then passing to the data scientist, building up models, building up the rationale behind that product, and then it would get productionalized by the machine learning engineers, who would then hand it over to operations to be operated automatically throughout time. So definitely different roles there.
Well, I'm looking at that from kind of a different perspective of being like not at the business side, of being at the software vendor side. However, what I can, I'm just my observation. Data analyst, data scientist, and chief data officer, those are kind of the people that stays in front of each other, not together. Data scientists and data analysts, they need the data, the clean, curated data to do the data analytics and to train their models to add the given features to the algorithms. And the chief data officer, data stewards, and his or her team is exactly responsible for providing that kind of data for the data scientific team. Not only, but also. Well, in general, chief data officer role, in my opinion, it's a role of the person who knows everything about the data in the organization. Since the moment data entered the company, how they're traveling inside, how they're being transformed, what are the data quality metrics applied, what if the data quality metrics drop down if you move data from point A to point B, who owns a given data set, who's responsible for that, who has to be contacted if you have a challenge, a problem with the data. So this is a role of a person who is really overlooks all the data in the company, knows everything about the data, and ready to provide the data for the team of data scientists and data analysts.
And sorry, probably just one more thing. The world's becoming more and more regulated, particularly around data and maybe even AI going forward in the future. We've heard a little bit about ethics before, but I think you also need to keep abreast of what's happening with, say, like the NDMO and those kind of things to be prepared for, say, your next cycle of, say, budgeting in the year ahead and that kind of thing to make sure that you can conform to the regulations that do come up. So it's not just an operational or a company-wide thing. It's also a bigger, broader perspective that we should have as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've talked about organizational readiness. We talked about developing a strategy or road mapping to a strategy. We talked about the people element of it. So sort of the process and the people coming together. The next thing we want to uncover really is how do we ensure, or how does an organization ensure that what has been conceptualized in the roadmap, what the people are going to deliver, does really align with the overall business strategy. So, and how does, where is the line, or is there a line between data collection and data analytics and reporting and that sort of layer of data? The analogy or the reference that I would always talk to my clients about, at least, is about when you measure in the analytics world, in the data analytics world, when you measure things, there's what I like to call fluffy metrics. So sort of, if you were looking at digital touch points, for example, reach and impressions and time on site or time on an app, or any of those metrics that tell you something about how much you've engaged with customers, but don't really tell you much about a business value, do they? So we then move from fluffy, as I like to call them, into more business-oriented metrics of conversions and leads and cost of acquisition and all that sort of stuff. And those have to align to a business strategy and business objectives and so on. So the question to the panel really is, how do we make sure that alignment continues to happen? How do we make sure that the strategy and the people are really working towards delivering to the business objectives from a brand perspective? And is there a difference looking at it from a private company to a public sector company or a government agency or any of that?
I guess for me, it's really important to understand what your company's strategy is as they're formulating it, whether that be at the end of a year for the following year or their 3-year strategy. And then always when you're speaking with the business that you're dealing with, how does this align to that strategy that we've got or the goals that we've got for the company, say in next year, 3 years, 5 years, that kind of thing. And the other thing that was really important, which we heard today, was making sure that you're dealing with the right people in the business units as well. So we can go out to, say, a lot of people that are in operations roles that are trying to automate certain things, but I think it's really important that you maintain those relationships with the presidents or the executives of those departments to make sure that the work that you're working on is aligned to what they're trying to achieve. Because often if you come from the bottom up, you end up doing a lot of work that doesn't really have value at the top. But if you're dealing with the executive, they know that they've got goals that they need to achieve to that strategy, and you will work on use cases that are aligned with them and their ultimate goals as well. And it's about keeping them informed along the journey as well, so that they can be your advocate if you're going into meetings in those executive meetings. If you have those really good business relationships, which fortunately myself and my team, we do have, they'll be your advocate. And if they need an extra spend, you'll have those people that will be there as your supporter in the future. So I think those things for me make a difference.
Absolutely, I would have to second the top-down approach. It's never going to work if it's bottom-up. You have to have stakeholder involvement and higher management endorsement in order to be able to achieve that data strategy in line with the business and organizational strategy. I believe, and even in STC, the way we see it is connecting both the business understanding as well as the technical understanding and development. One role we have is the analytics managers, which is, we call it BA++. Who are actually understanding and can speak the business language as well as they can speak the technical language. So they are the connecting person between different various businesses and STC in different industries. And STC as a group has many subsidiaries as well who are into different industries. So we have those people who understand both languages and can be actually the connecting dot between the technical team and the business. Once we understand the business, once we understand the business pains, the business problems, then we can actually come up with the right solution that would fulfill their, that would solve their business problems, fulfill their objectives, enhance their operations, efficiency, profitability as well. And then having a baseline at the beginning where after we develop our products, then we can measure the impact of that analytics product and how it impacted that baseline, be it profit, customer experience, employee experience, etc. So the understanding of business objective is key in order to make that impact in the development of artificial intelligence and analytics.
Yeah, I don't think I can add more to that. Definitely, what I can see, just again in my observation, you really need to have this kind of a layer between the business and the data scientists, the people data analysts who understand the business part of that and the technical part of that. Because otherwise, if we start applying a kind of our everyday business KPIs on the data scientists directly, that's not right things to do. Those people, they're very creative, right? Imagine you hired a group of artists or a group of dancers for a company. What kind of business KPI you can get them? It's simply impossible. This kind of a time to insight. What is that? Who invented that? Those guys, they need to spend the time, they're creative, they have to get the insights. Very difficult to measure them in a business term. And this is maybe something, a really interesting topic for the brainstorm of how to really measure the performance if it's possible and if it's needed.
It certainly is, and I think KPIs is one of those most challenging topics as far as I'm concerned in terms of how do you actually get to defining the KPI. So we all know we want to increase sales, we want to increase customers, we want to increase whatever it may be, right? But how do you decide whether that's a 5 or a 10 or a 15% and put hand on heart and commit to these metrics? So we like to talk when we talk to clients about KPIs, obviously, because every client wants to see some increase and some growth. But we also talk about KPAs, which is probably a term that we invented a bit, I think. So key performance areas as opposed to necessarily indicators. And the difference, as far as I'm concerned, is indicators, you're coming down to the nitty-gritty of it's going to be 5%, it's going to be 10%. Whereas areas, you're probably still at that stage where you can't figure out the increase per se, but you know you need to have an impact in particular areas of performance. And then that's, again, in my head at least, the sense of going sort of a crawl, walk, run type of strategy where let's not overcommit, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot, let's set realistic expectations. So in year one of our strategy, hypothetically speaking, we will influence sales positively, obviously. But, you know, can we fully commit to numbers? Obviously, it's difficult to not commit to a number, but how do you go from, again, saying it's a commitment to sales to it's a commitment to sales of 5%? It's quite a big decision to make and has to be made in the right way to get to land on those KPIs correctly.
Just another thing as well. I think we heard it earlier today. Once you start getting into the data science type use cases where you're looking for that return on investment, because it can be quite large and you're spending a lot of money to come up with these new AI solutions. I think we heard earlier today that it's really important to work with the business. It's not just get their requirements, go off and build it, but this is going to be a journey on this use case for, say, 3 or 6 months, and we're going to work together on this. And I think as long as we're keeping, like I said, the executives or the leadership teams within these groups that as long as they're coming along on the journey, they understand how this is all shaping up and can justify some of these things in the future as well, that if you're not making 5%, you're only doing 2%. They've been along for the journey. It's their business case as well. They understand why.
That's absolutely true. Okay, so we've talked about data quite a bit. We've talked about analytics quite a bit. Let's shift gears a little bit towards AI, sort of the second half of the topic of this entire summit. So how does AI fit into this whole thing? So what role really does AI play in making sure that we do leverage data as a strategic asset? AI has been around for a very long time. It's obviously gotten a lot of attention in the last 12-ish months, give or take. ChatGPT this, whatever that, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's experimenting. But let's take AI in the context of data and what role does AI and perhaps machine learning as well play in making sure that we're making best use of data, or again, leveraging data as a strategic asset?
Yeah, I think for us it's around sort of optimization and feeding the right information at the right time so people can make the decisions at the right time. We don't have that much at the moment where it's sort of making its own decisions to be able to go off and run on its own, sort of unsupervised. But I think for us it's more around at the moment purely just making sure that we can get cost savings around sort of automation and optimization in the way that we do things internally, but as well giving that information at the right time to the right people so that they can make the best decision as the business told us that they need. Yeah. So that's for us, that's what it is.
I would have to say AI and machine learning are actually revolutionizing the way we work, the way we operate companies and organizations. And as you mentioned, ChatGPT by OpenAI or large language models, which are basically neural network that it has huge amounts of parameters and trained on unlabeled text using semi-supervised or self-supervised learning. Basically, it would come up with a language that is that would mimic human language, and it's very high in accuracy as well as and the human language type itself. The thing about AI and machine learning is machine learning has been here for like tens of years with different names, different concepts, but today the capability of processing vast amounts of data in short amount of time with accurate results, be it predicting what's going to happen, assessing the current situation, predicting behavior, identifying behavior, and so on and so forth. For example, ChatGPT or the large language models that are a hype today can be used in organizations for customized customer experience. It can be used in sales, even HR, even in data analytics, which is going to make a big impact on how we're handling data and how we're actually operating our organizations.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. Artificial intelligence became a part of our life. It's kind of a different depending on the line of the business, right? If you look at the financial institution, they can use AI for the stuff like fraud detection or risk assessment. If you're looking at the telecom industry, there might be different applications like network capacity, network planning, customer churn management. Really, every single line of business has its own application of artificial intelligence. If you look at, I was really surprised. We spoke with a company that is doing like a mining business. You know, they're like just a huge like mining tracks. They're going down, they're loading with the ore and going back, and they have the projector that actually projects the AI recommendation on the screen on the driver. How to drive, what route to choose, where to brake, where to speed up, and it's there. And also, it's full of different kind of sensors. They collecting the information like electricity signals, like a noise, like a temperature, and they're able to predict if a given part of the engine is going to get broken soon, which completely changed the business, right? Speaking for myself, we utilize artificial intelligence under the hood of our data virtualization platform to provide the best possible query execution path. So we use AI to suggest us how to query the data in the most efficient way. So it really changes all the parts of life. And more to come, definitely more to come.
Okay, so we certainly had one or two more questions for our panelists, but I'm just very conscious of time. So I'm just going to try and stop for a minute first and check if there are any questions. If there aren't, then we'll go on for maybe one more question, but just to make sure that the audience has the opportunity. So are there any questions for our panelists? There's a big bank for our panelists. Okay, so if there aren't any, no, not seeing anybody with hands. Okay, wonderful. So we'll go for one more then. So we can't really talk about AI and ChatGPT particularly, maybe it's been mentioned now, without really trying to address the topic of ethics and compliance and the question marks that that potentially poses. Sorry, there is a question, I apologize. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
My name is Ihab Bekhit. I'm leading the delivery management in Jadara. And we have different projects in Saudi Arabia, and we are leading big names, including STC. Okay. We facing some problems. Usually our clients call us to build a data strategy, but no business need. They talk about the data strategy, building data office, defining roles, duties, and so on. They invest much money, but they don't have a business need. They think about building a data-driven layer, self-service, but without a business strategy. They don't align with the data strategy, with the business need, with what is the business strategy they have. Actually, they think about the regulations. NDMO asked to be a regulator. You should be compliant to NDMO regulations. You should follow 15 domains like data management, data strategy, building data office, data value driven, and so on. But when we talk about what is the business value they need, nothing. They talk about we need a data strategy. We need to be data driven. But you don't have a business use cases. We invest much money. We know some of our accounts invested around 20 million riyal, but no business use cases. What is ROI here? It is not clear. What is required from NDMO? Just regulations. So how to link regulations with the business strategy, how to force the ROI for anyone invest much money. This is the case we're facing more and more. So what is the approach preferred? To be data-driven, to collect the data, build use cases without a business need, or to think about business issues, what the business requires from a data management. If we go with data-driven, we collect the data, we apply data quality, we build the data like a data lake layer, data virtualization, data warehouse, one virtualization like Denodo, and after that we deliver to a self-service layer, data is ready. But why we invested much money to get the data ready? What is the business case we need? Nothing. If we're not aligned with the data strategy, with the business strategy, so we will invest much money without ROI. This is one of our challenges, and we are a good implementer in data management. We are working in data management for around 13 years so far. So we can deliver any requirements for the data. We can collect the data from end to end. But if we're not aligned with the business need, so we'll invest more and more. And we are happy. We get money, but we nothing to deliver to business here. Exactly. So what's your recommendation, to go with business-driven or to go with data-driven? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the good question. Sounds as if you're facing some challenges. I guess, like, for me, it's a number of things, right? Like, are the executives not aware of the value that data can provide to them, and then therefore maybe you need to educate the executives around how the world's changing and what they need to be doing, as well as being technically sharp in what you're doing already. And then as well, I guess some of the value will come in the future just around aligning with those executive strategy, and maybe trying to prove out with a POC what it is like they have in their strategy. How can you maybe help them out with one of their strategic goals? We'll do a POC. Let's see if you can see it. But then as well, I think, you know, we'll see it more and more, just from my experience of being in Australia and Singapore, that there'll be more and more regulation that comes, and there'll be more and more reporting requirements that come, much the same as maybe in banking and that kind of thing with the Basel Accord and that kind of thing, that they have to actually report back into the regular authorities or regulatory authorities. So then there's value there, although you don't actually get a return on investment as such. It is something that you can prove out that, you know, normally this takes you maybe 5 days to be able to reply back to that authority. But with us and what we've done here with this data quality and the dashboarding or the reports that we've done, we can actually deliver that within, say, 20 minutes or, you know, 2 minutes, just going off and looking for it. So it may be more around, I think, the executives understanding data or AI, and then educating them on what it could do using use cases from before. But I'm not in consulting, so I don't actually really know. Does anybody else have any other ideas on sort of how we might be able to help?
I think it's key for companies to define their business strategies, obviously. But as you were mentioning, it's not there. I believe any decision-making process can involve data to enhance that process. Recent research shows that only 1 out of 10 executives would make decisions based on data rather than experience and gut knowledge. So there is a change management here that has to be done in terms of focusing on executives. Again, it's top-down approach and how they approach data and how they can utilize and benefit from data and into their decision-making process. It's how you do data storytelling to them, how you describe the data to them, rather than just giving them blunt numbers that wouldn't make much sense and no context or no visualized way. Then I think it's all about change management, data storytelling, and the culture around data and the company itself.
Wonderful, thank you. So just being conscious of time, I think we're going to have to bring this to a close. So thank you very much to our panelists today. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for the question. And we'll be available for further questions offline if necessary, obviously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.